Have you ever wondered why the parable of the prodigal son has remained one of Jesus' most beloved teachings for nearly 2,000 years? At first glance, it seems like a simple story about a rebellious son who leaves home, makes poor decisions, and eventually returns to a loving father. But beneath the surface lies a deeper message, a message about grace, pride, forgiveness, and the human heart. In fact, many Bible scholars believe the story is not only about the younger son who wandered away, but also about someone else entirely. Today, we'll explore the hidden meaning behind one of Jesus' most famous parables and discover why its lessons remain just as relevant in the modern world as they were in ancient times. To understand the story, we first need to understand why Jesus told it. According to the Gospel of Luke, Jesus was spending time with tax collectors and sinners, people who were often rejected by society. Many religious leaders criticized him for this. They questioned why a teacher who spoke about God would associate with people they considered unworthy. In response, Jesus shared several parables: the lost sheep, the lost coin, and finally, the parable of the prodigal son. Each story focused on something that was lost and then found. But the final parable would reveal a much deeper truth about God's compassion and humanity's struggle to understand it. The story begins with a younger son making an astonishing request. He asks his father for his share of the inheritance. Today, that may sound unusual, but in the culture of first-century Judea, it was even more shocking. An inheritance was normally received after a father's death. By asking for it early, the son was essentially saying, "I want what belongs to me now." To many listeners, it would have sounded as though he cared more about wealth than his relationship with his father. The audience listening to Jesus likely expected anger, punishment, or rejection. Instead, the father grants the request. And just like that, the son leaves home. He travels to a distant land and begins a new life. At first, freedom must have felt exciting. No rules, no responsibilities, no one telling him what to do. But freedom without wisdom can quickly become a trap. The younger son spends everything he has. His money disappears, his friends disappear, and eventually, a famine strikes the region. What once seemed like a life of endless possibilities suddenly becomes a struggle for survival. Jesus paints a powerful image. The young man becomes so desperate that he takes a job feeding pigs. To a Jewish audience, this detail carried special meaning. Pigs were considered unclean animals. For someone raised within Jewish traditions, caring for pigs represented a dramatic fall from dignity and status. The son who once enjoyed abundance now finds himself hungry and alone. Yet it is in this moment of hardship that something begins to change. Sometimes life's greatest lessons emerge during our most difficult seasons. And for the younger son, this would become a turning point. The son comes to a realization. He remembers his father's household. Even the servants there live better than he does. So he prepares a speech. He plans to return home and ask for mercy, not as a son, but as a servant. Notice something important here. He does not return expecting rewards. He does not return demanding rights. He simply hopes for another chance. And so he begins the long journey home. With every step, he likely wondered what awaited him. Would he be rejected? Would he be humiliated? Would his father even allow him back? Jesus allows the tension to build. Then comes one of the most moving moments in the entire parable. While the son is still far away, the father sees him. And then something unexpected happens. The father runs. Modern readers often overlook this detail, but Jesus' original audience would have immediately noticed it. In that culture, respected older men typically did not run in public. Running could be seen as undignified. Yet the father does not hesitate. He runs toward his son. He embraces him. And before the son can finish his prepared speech, the father welcomes him home. A robe is brought. A ring is placed on his finger. A feast is prepared. The celebration begins. The father declares, My son was lost and is found. This moment reveals one of the central themes of the parable: restoration. The father is not focused on past failures. He is focused on reconciliation. Jesus uses this image to communicate something profound about mercy and forgiveness. This is where many people stop reading the story. But Jesus continues, and this next section contains one of the most important lessons in the entire parable. The older brother returns from working in the fields. He hears music and celebration. When he learns that his younger brother has returned, he becomes angry, very angry. Unlike the younger brother, he never left home. He worked hard. He obeyed the rules. He remained loyal. Yet instead of rejoicing, he refuses to join the celebration. Why? Because he believes the younger brother does not deserve forgiveness. From his perspective, the celebration feels unfair. And suddenly, the story becomes much more than a tale about a rebellious son. It becomes a story about two different kinds of lostness. One son was lost through reckless choices. The other was lost through bitterness and pride. Many scholars believe the older brother represents the religious leaders who criticized Jesus. They followed the rules. They valued obedience. But they struggled to understand compassion toward those they considered sinners. Jesus challenges that mindset. The parable suggests that outward obedience alone is not enough. A person can be physically close to the Father while remaining emotionally distant. Likewise, someone who has made mistakes can still find a path back through humility and repentance. The story invites every listener to examine their own heart, not merely their actions, but their attitudes, their assumptions, and their willingness to extend grace to others. Even though this story was told centuries ago, its lessons remain remarkably relevant. Many people can identify with the younger son. Perhaps they have experienced failure, regret, poor decisions, or seasons of feeling lost. Others may recognize themselves in the older brother. They work hard, try to do what is right, yet sometimes struggle with resentment when life seems unfair. Jesus' parable speaks to both experiences. It reminds us that people are more than their worst mistakes. It reminds us that pride can be just as dangerous as recklessness. And perhaps most importantly, it reminds us that reconciliation is possible. Whether in families, friendships, or communities, healing often begins when people choose understanding over judgment. The parable of the prodigal son is far more than a story about one young man's return home. It is a story about forgiveness, humility, compassion, and the challenge of seeing others through the lens of grace. The next time you read this parable, ask yourself, which character do you relate to most? The younger son, the older brother, or perhaps the father? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed uncovering the hidden meanings behind Jesus' teachings, be sure to subscribe to Hidden Bible Light for more explorations into the timeless wisdom found within the Bible. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next journey into Scripture's hidden light.